Okay. So, where was I? Oh, so they had given me the spinal. I get in there, and I will say, when they wheeled me in to the OR, I looked up at the clock, and it was 2:50 a.m. in the morning. And I'm like, okay, I wonder how long this is gonna, take. So I come in, and I'm joking around with the nurses, and I look, and I'm like, wait a minute. This little itty bitty ER is like the size of my bedroom. I'm like, where's the rest of it? I was like, on TV, on all the C-section videos online, the OR is huge. She starts laughing. She said, yeah, they do have you in the smallest one. She said, which is weird because this is the one we deliver all our twins in. She said, and it's the smallest for some reason. You'd think it would be bigger because of the amount of people that have to be in here. And I said, well, where are the people? Because I only see like 5 of you. Where's everybody else at? So she starts laughing. And she says, they're coming, they'll be in here by the time we get started. I'm like, okay. Now, and I will, when I do my video about the NICU, I'll talk about that more, about where they're coming from and that type of thing. But anyhow, so I'm like, okay. So there's only like 5 or 6 people in there. Literally, there's my nurse, the one who's been taking care of me all night. She's in there. I hear the doctor. There's the anesthesiologist guy. Not the one who came in to have me sign the papers. The guy who's actually working. I don't really know what he was doing. Well, let's rephrase that. His job, he gave me Zofran in my IV when I told him I had to puke, and his job was in case I needed something else, I guess. Then the lady who came in, who had me sign the papers, who said she'd be doing the injections, she was the one who I think did the spinal. And she also did the injections at the end. So anyhow, she was the other. So we have 2 anesthesiologists, a guy and a girl. We've got my doctor, and we've got a handful of nurses, and then my nurse. So, I come in joking around. So anyhow, so they're trying to get me to bend over for the spinal, and I'm telling them, look, I'm going to break this poor girl who's in front of me. They're like, no, she's fine. And it wasn't my nurse, it was a different nurse. And it was funny because they're like, no, you won't hurt her. And I'm like, yeah, I will knock her over if I fall off this table. But excuse me. Nonetheless, they finally get it in, and they're like, okay, you got to lay back quickly because it kicks in fast. As soon as it kicks in, you have to go ahead and lay back because everything's supposed to go numb. Now, with the epidural, from what I remember, now granted, it was 16 years ago because my child was almost 16, but I want to say epidural went instantly from not being able to feel anything, from feeling to not being able to feel. With the spinal, it was... I'm feeling like my legs are a little tingly. I'm feeling like, oh, my legs and stuff feel like it's going to sleep. Kind of like when you're laying on something too long and it has that tingly, then it goes to sleep. Oh, that feels weird. When I press on it, I can't really feel. And then it went to, I don't feel anything. So it's like a gradual with the spinal, at least for me. Now, other people may have a totally different experience. That's just what I noticed. So I'm like, okay. So the spinal kicks in, they lay me back. And they put up the little blue curtain. The anesthesiologist guy, the gentleman, introduces himself, tells me who he is. I'm like, okay, great. He's like, do you need anything right now? No, I'm good. So they get started, and the only thing I felt at any point in time was pressure, but the pressure I felt was only at the very top of my uterus, right by my chest. And I think that was from them trying to push the babies down, because both of them, of course, were breech. Both of them were up near the top instead of the bottom, so they had to kind of push them down. There was no pain. I didn't feel, a lot of people say they feel tugging where they pull them out. I didn't feel any of that. I didn't feel a cut, nothing. I only felt that pressure at the top. Now, I will say that pressure at the top did not feel good. It did not feel pleasant, and it made me feel like I had to puke. I very politely let the anesthesiologist guy know, hey, I feel like I'm going to throw up. Like right now. So he tells me, turn your head to the side and puke, I guess, down. I guess there was a basket there. I don't know. But I never did throw up. He put Zofran in my IV, and it kicked in quickly because the puke feeling went from I got to puke to I don't have to puke in like 10, 20 seconds. So it works very fast. I will give him that. My mom did make it in time. They brought her in right, I want to say right after they got started, I think she said. And honestly, I love my mother, and I appreciate that she was there. Really, I do, because, my husband, God bless him, missed the birth of our kids because he was at home asleep. So I'm thankful that my mother came. But I don't remember her really being there. And it's because I was so out of it. Between the Stadol hadn't worn off, the morphine, and then the medicine they gave me for the spinal was Dilaudid. Now, I've never been on Dilaudid before. I know that it has some serious side effects because my first husband was on it a couple times when he was in the hospital. So I know that it can cause, a little out of it from what I get. And now, of course, they've given me another shot of Zofran. So I am like floating. I'm somewhere else. So I remember seeing my mother come in. I remember saying, "Hey, you made it. Thank you." And then I remember kind of zoning out. Now, I didn't go to sleep, but I am one of those people when I'm trying to deal with pain, I start to sing and hum. So the whole staff in the room got to hear me. They got to hear that the whole time. Now, none of them complained. None of them said anything about my humming. And that was my way of coping, not to flip out on anybody, because, here I am knowing y'all are cutting me open, and that was a problem for me, knowing what was going on down there, but couldn't see it and can't have any control over it, if that makes sense. So I sang, and my mother didn't say a whole lot. She just sat there, and the anesthesiologist was just like, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," And after I had the puke feeling went, I said something to him about I said, "How much longer are they going to be?" And he's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "How much longer are they going to be?" He's like, "Well, they've already started." I was like, "Oh, really?" He's like, "Yeah, they've already started." He's like, "The first baby's almost out." He's like, "Do you need anything for anxiety?" Because, I guess they had shared with him that I, was a little anxious, because I was. And they knew that ahead of time. The doctor knew that. The nurses knew that. It was in my chart. If she needs something for anxiety, to give it to her. But I told him, I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "If you give me something," I said, "is it going to knock me out?" Because at this point, I knew the babies are coming early. They're going to have to go to the NICU. I don't want to go to sleep and miss it. It's already bad enough my husband can't be here. I won't have any pictures because I don't have a camera on me. My mom doesn't have a camera. Nobody has a phone on them. I'm going to get no pictures of this. I want to be able to see it. And for me, I'm a scrapbooker. Most of you know that. And for me, pictures are everything. And I am very upset that I got no pictures of me in labor and delivery, because I was in there, with my friends, and they stopped by, but we didn't know I'd be going anytime soon, so we didn't take pictures. No pictures of them being born. No pictures of right after they were born. So I'm still a little upset about that, but that's, we'll get over it. But I wanted to be awake. So when I asked him, I said, "Hey, is that going to knock me out?" He said, "Probably." I said, "Then no, I'll stay awake. I'm good." So I just kept humming. So all I remember is the first baby. I remember them saying, "Okay, baby A is out," and I heard her cry. And then, like a minute later, mind you, I feel them tugging and pushing, and then like a minute later, I hear the anesthesiologist. The anesthesiologist told me, "Okay, baby B is out," and I'm like, "Okay, she's not crying." And he was like, "I think she is." He was like, "You probably can't hear her because baby A is crying." He's like, "And baby B, they had to put some oxygen on her, so you might not be able to hear it muffled or anything." I said, "Okay." So I'm waiting. I'm laying there, still just pushed the pressure at the top. Nothing hurts, and I'm just like, "Okay, that doesn't feel good." They're like, "We know, we got to do it." I know. So I'm laying there, and they finally bring the babies over. Now, baby A, she was in like a little, looked like plastic baggie, like saran wrap. She was covered up, and then they had a receiving blanket around that and the little hat on her head, and they brought her over to me, and I got to look at her briefly, and they took her. And then baby B, they had to put her in an incubator off the bat with air circulating in it, or whatever they had in there. I didn't quite see all of it. I just know she was in a box, whereas baby A was not. And they're like, "Okay, we got to go." So they went on down and they left. From start to finish, like I said, they can't talk right now. Wheeled me in. It was 2:50. Baby A was born at 3:11. Baby B was born at 3:12. And when I looked up at the clock, when they were done and they got ready to wheel me back out, it was 3:50. So it took them an hour from start to finish to do everything. They wheeled me into the OB recovery. They gave me another shot of morphine for pain. The anesthesiologist, the lady, did give me the 2 shots of whatever that was at the site of the incision. I couldn't tell you what she gave me, but they gave me something there too. But she gave me, and the other doctor gave me morphine. I mean, the nurse gave me morphine. They had a lactation consultant come in, and the lactation consultant, well, she's a nurse. That's part of her specialty too. She came in and she brought me a pump and all the accessories, and told me, you know, when I should go and get started pumping, and gave me like little plastic bottles and the labels and everything. And I'll talk more about that in the next part of the video. Okay, this is the end of part 4.